y was going up by positive 2, so y goes up by positive 2 every time the x value went up by 1, which means y was going up positive 2, x went to the right 1, or increased by 1, up 2 to the right 1. Okay, so that has to do with the rate of change, or the slope of our line, or the slant of our line. Okay, moving along to the next ones. Okay, so here we're looking at graphing lines that are not, they don't have quite as nice slants to them. Y equals 1/2 x plus, y equals 1/2 x plus 4. So now if we look at that, if we go to y equals 1/2 x plus 4, if I put that in the calculator, okay, so I'm going to go to, again, in my TI 30, if I go to table, and if I say y equals 1/2 x, so 1/2, actually let me put parentheses. You should always put parentheses around fractions like that. So y equals 1/2 x, and then plus 4. Okay, press enter. Okay, and again, I'm just going to start at -3 on the table. Okay, and go up by 1s. Okay, and here, you notice what happens when x is -3, we get 2.5. Now that's not a terrible value to plot, but that decimal is going to be a little bit annoying. So if I scroll up 1 to -4, we get 2. So that's going to be a nice point to plot, -4, 2. Now, using arithmetic, what you're actually doing in that table is take 1/2 of -4. Well, half of -4 is -2, and when you add 4 to that, you get +2. So again, your calculator is not doing magic. Okay, it's doing the algebra for you. When you put -3 in, the problem is half of -3 is a decimal. It's -1.5. Add 4 to that, and you get +2.5. Okay, so odd numbers in this case. So anything that's not a multiple of 2. Okay, so remember when you put a number in for x, you're going to divide it by 2 basically. Okay, they're going to give you decimals if they're not even numbers. Okay, that's okay, but they're just not going to be nice to plot. So you want to put in several values in there that are nice to plot. Okay, so scroll through your table and make sure you get several values that are nice to plot. Okay, so that's graph A, okay, which is the black line right here. Okay, so plot those points. Okay, do the same thing for y equals 3/2 x minus 1. Okay, and you get the points -4, -7, -3, -3.5, and so on. And that'll be the blue graph. And then C, and again, if you need to pause the video, please do that. -3/4 x plus 6. So to put that in the calculator, press table. You're going to do parentheses, negative. Okay, use the white negative. Okay, not the minus sign, but the white negative. So -3 divided by 4 times x, and then plus 6. And if I start at, say, -4, step 1, auto, okay. That gives me -4/9 for the first point. And then notice how the next 3 points are decimals. Okay, so now what we're looking at is a nice table is going to be any multiples of 4. Because when you put in values for x, if it's a multiple of 4, that multiple of 4 is going to cancel with the 4 and give you a nice answer. So if you scroll in this, 0.6 is the next nice one, and then 4.3 will be the next nice point. Okay, so there's your table of values for y equals -3/4 x plus 6. Okay, and that graph, when you plot these points, will be the red one, okay, up here. Okay, now the thing I do want to point out before I finish this video is that we just plotted points by making a table of values. Now that shouldn't be hard to do, especially when you have y equals, you put it right in your calculator. Okay, and it's not a real crazy hard thing to do. But I want you to understand the relationship of what's happening in each of these on each of these graphs when you relate it to the table. So when you look at what's happening with the x and y values, well, notice that to get from a y value of 2 to 3, to get from 2 to 3, you have to add 1. So that means when y goes up by 1, the x value had to do what? Well, it went from -4 to -2. So x had to increase by 2. So every time y goes up by 1, the x value goes up by 2. Let's look at the next pair of points. From 3 to 4, the y value adds 1. To get from -2 to 0, the x value had to add 2. From 4 to 5, the y value added 1. From 0 to 2, the x value added 2. So that's a ratio of 1 divided by 2. And if we notice what's happening on that graph for part A, okay, which is the black graph here, we started at the point -4, 2 right here. If we add 1 to the y value, so we go up 1 box, we have to add 2 to the x value. So notice that takes us to the next nice point on that graph. Up 1 to the right 2. So that up 1 is the change in the y value. To the right 2 is the change in the x value. Now if we look at just the decimal values from 4 to 4.5, that means we went up 0.5 for the y value, and the x value went up by 1. Well, if you take positive 0.5 for the y value, so from the point 0.04, if we go up 0.5, we went up half a box, and then to the right 1. So the change in x was 1. Notice that we're on that line still. Now the only problem with that is you have to estimate where that 4.5 is. That's hard to estimate. So you generally try to use nice integer numbers, okay, meaning no decimals involved, to count your rate of change like that, or the change in y over the change in x. For B, y equals 3/2 x minus 1. Okay, so that is this blue line right here. What you notice is, to get from -7 to -4, you have to add 3. So from -7 to -4, you have to add 3. To get from -4 to -2, you have to add 2. So that means, if you're starting at this point at -4, -7, if you add 3 to the y value, up 3, and then add 2 to the x value, is to the right 2. Notice that takes us to the next nice point on that grid. Do that from -4 to -1, we added 3 again. From -2 to 0, we added 2. So if you add 3 to the y, add 2 to the x, it takes us to that next nice point at 0, -1. Do that one last time. Well, if we do from -1 to 2, again, from -1 to 2 is adding 3. It's a little tricky. Just think about it. You go from -1 to 2, you have to add 3 to that. -1 to get 2. And then from 0 to 2 is adding 2 again. So here, if you add 3, so 3 to the y, and then to the right 2, we end up on the line again. Okay, with y equals -3/4 x plus 6. Well, here, notice if we go from a y value of 9 down to the next nice value of 6, we have to subtract 3. The x values went from -4 to 0, which means we had to add 4. So if we start at the point -4, 9, okay, that's this point up here. Well, if we take away 3 from the y, we go down 3, and then add 4 to the x, we go to the right 4. And we can do that again, down 3 to the right 4. It gives us that next nice point on our grid right here at 4, 3. Okay, so we go down 3 to the right 4. Okay, and what you might notice is in the equations for those, that pattern tells us the coefficient of x. Okay, so in that last example, the -3/4, the y value went down by 3, and whenever x went up by 4, notice that's what -3/4 is -3 divided by 4. Up in the part B, the y value went up 3 every time x went up by 2. Notice that 3 divided by 2, that's the number in front of x there. And then the 1/2, okay, in part A, that meant that the y value went up by 1 every time x went up by 2. So the change in y was 1, the change in x was 2. That's the coefficient of x. Okay, so with that number in front of x, what that's telling you is the rate of change, or the slope, or the slant of your line. Okay, it tells you the change in y over the change in x. Okay, and we'll build on that in the next video.